What is negotiation but the accumulation of small lies leading to advantage? That's a quote by Felix Dennis. Welcome everybody to this episode of Rolling Through Negotiations. I'd like to first give our acknowledgement to the traditional owners of the land in which we're on today. So I'm here on Ghana country. Our amazing guest today, Donald Betts, he is on Wurundjeri, Wurawong, Bunurong and Boonwurrung peoples, country of the Kulin Nation. But since we're online, let us all pay respects to our elders, all First Nations peoples, and also our elders past, present, and future. Donald Betts is an amazing guest for us to be having today. He's the interim CEO at Kinaway, Chamber of Commerce. Donald, how are you today, brother?
I'm well, Matt. It couldn't be a better day. It's a little overcast here in Melbourne, but it's still a beautiful day to be alive and wake up this morning.
Yeah, it's also a beautiful day to be able to connect with you.
Thank you, Matt.
As well, and your role at Kinaway, Donald, you're the acting deputy CEO. You've come with a whole heap of experience. You're from Kansas, USA, initially. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm the acting CEO now. I came on initially Kinaway as the deputy CEO of Kinaway. It was an agreement with the board that I come on for 6 months. The board has since extended that for another 6 months. So I've been on for about 10 months now. First as a deputy CEO, and then the acting CEO. But yes, I am from the great state of Kansas.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I love your charismatic Kansas City voice, and this sort of your style. I think is amazing too. When I first met you, Donald, I thought, man, this guy here, he's very charismatic, and your upbringing and where you come from definitely shines through.
Yes.
Have you heard that before? Or do you think that like having come from Kansas into Australia, there's a different element of, I don't know, like I think it's almost like you're a charismatic person, but then also coming from Kansas gives you an additional layer of charisma in the way you go about doing things.
Yeah, I was born in Kansas, and we left Kansas when I was 10 to meet up with my grandfather, who was a Baptist minister. And maybe a lot of that comes from the church, singing in the choir and doing all those things with Grandpa. But I moved to Las Vegas, and I think that's really where I got my the ability to adjust to all situations of life and all types of people, because as you know, people from all over the world come to Las Vegas, and working in the casinos and having to interact with folks from all over the world just kind of opened me up to certain possibilities and transformations. And then after graduating from high school in Vegas, I moved back to Kansas, and that's where I really got my start in politics and engaging with the public and doing some remarkable things for the great people of the great state of Kansas.
Yeah, and so you've continued doing this great work in the great state of Kansas. I mean, recently, following you on social media, seeing the amazing work that you've been doing as part of the team over there. Can you explain a bit about those accomplishments?
Yeah, so in the spirit of self-determination and the Urim Boy strategy, supported by the Victorian government, we thought the board, with the permission of the board and the approval of the board, the Kinaway Chamber of Commerce thought, you know what, let's do something big. So at the Kinaway Business Awards, we announced that 2024 will bring in a new energy, and that energy will be Kinaway as big as you think. And so we decided we're going to take that step. And because I have so many contacts and resources in the state of Kansas, the state of Kansas was the I guess the ultimate place to have a trade mission. So we started forming this trade mission and with the energy of as Kinaway, as big as you think, and we laid out the largest First Nations trade delegation in the history of Australia to the Midwest of Kansas. And we named it from Oz to Mizzou, Mizzou meaning Missouri. And we took us about 3 months in this planning stages to get this underway. A feat like this would normally take at least a year to
Wow.
get out. But the amazing team at Kinaway Chamber of Commerce and our board, we came together with the Victorian government, AED, to lay out a strategy that has now opened the eyes and the vision for Victorian Aboriginal business and Torres Strait Islander businesses through members of the chamber. Many of those businesses that came on this trip are doing deals as we speak right now
Wow.
with
So you
America.
so you mean that we have Aboriginal businesses from Victoria
Yeah,
that are currently doing international trade
yeah.
with people over there in the United States, including in Kansas, as a result of this work that you've been doing.
Most definitely.
That's
So
amazing.
Ambassador Justin Muhammad also funded, I think, 8 members across Australia to come on this trip. So
Mm.
this was an Australian delegation, but the majority of the delegates were from Victoria. But so most certainly we are seeing some real outcomes come out of this trade mission. A lot of folks thought, oh, they're just going on another vacation or another holiday, some junket. I can assure you, and you can ask every delegate on this trip,
Yeah.
that this was no holiday.
Yeah.
Wake up at 8 and we likely would not get finished with our business until 8 that evening. And
Yeah. No.
many of our deadly business delegates, they got right on the phone because the time difference was still daytime in Australia. It was still business hours in Australia. So you would find these delegates getting right back on their computers, right back on their phones, and engaging in business in Australia after they completed their business on the trade mission.
That's definitely hard yakka.
My goodness. And I commend them because it was 7 days of just hard work, getting on a bus every day, a charter bus, driving hours to one city to the next. Our delegates, for the first time, had a trade showcase in the rotunda of the state capitol building. We had the didgeridoo being played in the state capitol building. And what's so significant, the senator from Cedric and the senator from Wyandotte, Senator Olitha Faust-Godot and Senator David Haley put together a Senate resolution number 1749, which is a resolution supporting the Kinaway Chamber of Commerce and the First Nations Leadership Development Trade Mission to the state of Kansas. This resolution was read on the Senate floor, and our delegates, a good number of our delegates were invited to come on the Senate floor of the chambers to be presented with a resolution signed by Ty Masterson, the president of the Senate. It was a remarkable, really remarkable opportunity to cement Kinaway Chamber of Commerce in the great state of Kansas and signed off by its government. What a remarkable opportunity.
Absolutely, and what a fantastic achievement. And when you speak about the delegates, they were Aboriginal business owners that went over there as part of this mission.
Aboriginal business owners. We had one not-for-profit Aboriginal business, the
Right.
Dandenong and Districts Aborigines Cooperative Limited. And Jenny Ockwell, the CEO there, she was the Wurundjeri elder that represented the eldership of our delegation. She was presented with a blanket by the Native Americans. And I wanted to do this different. Normally, we go over and we have a trade delegation, and our members are often asked to go to LA or New York. You get lost in LA and New York. Even Americans get lost in LA and New York. But
Yeah.
when you go to the Midwest, it's an opportunity to really take your time and engage with folks. But we wanted to do it right. So the first step was getting on a bus that Monday morning, driving to Kansas City, and having an indigenous to indigenous cultural immersion to ask for respect, to ask for permissions and pay respects to First Nations Americans before we started any trade or trade showcasing. That engagement between the two First Nations groups was historical, and they're still talking about it today. As a result, we're going to continue to do business together. We're going to continue to drive this First Nations to First Nations business engagement between the United States and Australia.
That's great. And I love the way that you shared the connection that took place between First Nations peoples of the United States and Kansas, and also the First Nation delegates that went over. Because sometimes you can see business that just, gets down very quickly into the nitty gritty. What's the deal? What's in it for me type attitude. But no, you started this from that place of connection. And so how important is it for, say, all businesses and also First Nations businesses to be able to connect as a platform to then be able to negotiate and create business outcomes from?
Most definitely. I think, when you do it right, the ancient ways of doing business, I was told by many folks that this wouldn't work. A lot of folks had us pinned to fail. They didn't believe that this trade mission was at the right time. They didn't believe that the right people were on the trip, but it was more than that. It was a First Nations business leadership development trade mission, for one. But two, First Nations people have been trading since the beginning of time. Yes. They were the first traders. There are ancient trade routes that rip all throughout this country and throughout the United States. This was an opportunity to give them sight that was once lost, to open their eyes again, to open their hearts and the passion for trading. And this opportunity of these delegates, roughly 40 delegates, gave them an opportunity to start looking at how they do business with each other, how we create a circular economy when we get back home, but also share in the connections that were made in the United States. It was a dream come true. And for those that did not believe, I think they need to, revisit, the history, the ancient history of the way Indigenous peoples have traded and that relationship building at first. So that Monday was about relationship building. It was about connecting. It was about the elders getting together and having that conversation around, what does this look like? How do we want to continue this? And, and just loving on each other. You will see the things that you've seen on LinkedIn, just a snippet of what's to come. Wayne Quillam, the famous photographer, will be putting out a beautiful document, a visual document of our trip, and for all to see. It's coming. I'm sure he's just editing everything, but once you see the real depth of what we had to experience, you will, want to sign up for the next one. Surely you'll be on the next
one. Oh, I hope to be there. That's for sure. To be honest, when I've seen some photographs and had some yarns with some of the delegates about the trip, I've thought, gee, I really would have loved to have been there. So count me in next time, Donald. We'll look forward to doing this with you.
Most definitely.
And what about for the doubting Thomases that are out there who might say, Aboriginal people or First Nations people, you don't know anything about trade. You don't know anything about business. What do we say to those doubting Thomases?
I'd say come visit the Kinaway Chamber of Commerce and meet some of our 400 members that do everything. Before you buy anything, you need to come and check with Kinaway. Surely we have a business person, very successful businessmen and women that do everything. So do not discount First Nations businesses. They are formidable, they're hardworking, and they're dedicated to building a generation that goes 7 generations deep. This is not a game for First Nations people. They are, these businessmen and women are embarking on something that they're going to pass on to their children and their children's children. Don't just watch them grow, come and grow with them.
Yes. Well said, Donald. And if you have peoples that have been around for 65,000 plus years, and there's been passing of knowledge, passing of wisdom, passing of goods and services, passing of utensils, passing of so much knowledge and understanding. There must be some level of excellence within that trade that's being done right.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and so what about your role as deputy,
Oh, no, acting.
acting deputy,
No, just acting CEO now.
or acting CEO? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, congratulations on the CEO, acting CEO. That's a good step up, but it's also a step forwards in terms of the recognition for the hard work and the great things you've been leading the team with at
Thank you.
Kinaway. What about people who might be listening to this podcast and they might be wondering, okay, so this word Kinaway keeps coming up. What is Kinaway and what is an Aboriginal Chamber of Commerce?
Well, Kinaway means exchange in the Gunai language, and the Kinaway Chamber of Commerce is the lead body representing certified Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses in Victoria. The Kinaway Chamber of Commerce is a charity established with the purpose of advancing Victorian Aboriginal businesses to actively participate and excel in both the national and international economy. The Kinaway Chamber of Commerce focus is on changing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander lives through a strength-based model of business ownership and participation in the global economy. The Kinaway Chamber of Commerce currently represents 300 plus member businesses across numerous industries, more than 151 tier one corporate partners, Global Alliance Friends of Kinaway, and thousands of supporters that directly contribute to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander business development and increasing employment and ensuring better health outcomes. Kinaway is certainly as big as you think.
Yeah.
Kinaway is the place to be, and we are the location where you want to come out. Come to our South Melbourne office. You'll love it. It's where we connect with water and land, just looking over the, just right across from the Albert Park, where we have a beautiful lake, the scenery of a beautiful lake and greenery, but we also have a place that is culturally safe and comfortable for all visitors that want to come and purchase things out of our Kinaway shop that our members have kindly displayed. Any art, if you like Aboriginal art, come and purchase some art. Support our members. Again, don't just watch us grow. Come and grow with us.
Nice. I can hear a massive round of applause. You know those old 1960 TV shows? Press that round of applause button because what you said then was fantastic, Donald. And what about your growth and education in growing up as a believer? So you're a man of God, and you mentioned a moment ago that you grew up with that understanding of ministry.
Yeah.
How does this connection help you in making decisions or making great leaps forward in terms of overseas trade missions? How does being a believer and a man of God help you in the work that you do?
Well, throughout the seasons of my life, it hasn't always been easy. I've grown up in a single parent home, and I know the feeling that comes with not having the tools in order to participate in mainstream activities, as simple as playing sports or playing basketball. I've had to work since I was 13 and help my mother with the family expenses and the home expenses and those things. But I've also been immensely blessed because outside of the gutter came an opportunity to serve in my Kansas legislature in the state Senate as the youngest senator in the history of the state of Kansas. I could not, in my own strength, could not have accomplished those things by myself. There had to be a higher power to take me from the ghettos of the gutter to dining with some of the wealthiest folks in America, to making legislation writing legislation that this citizens had to abide by, that judges had to interpret. To have that type of opportunity and privilege was so significant that it just can't be explained in a normal way. And the opportunity to then travel to Australia to learn about the federal and state parliament system through the ACYPL, the American Council of Young Political Leaders, and then to meet a beautiful lady that would, soon become my wife, and we have a beautiful family and children. And then this opportunity to do the work that I was doing in America by serving disadvantaged communities, serving the First Nations community that has become my new family and my new home. Whether it was act as CEO of the Wurundjeri Corporation or CEO here at the Kinaway Chamber of Commerce, or working closely with community to do probity work and really build that capacity for First Nations organizations. I'm honored. And it was only through, I believe, by the grace of God, to put me in the position where I am today. So, Matt, I'm going along with the ride. I just take one step every day, one in front of the other, and be led by the energy and be led by the purpose in this one life that I have and that I've been blessed with. So I have to make the best of it. And that's what I intend to do each and every day until I'm no longer on this earth.
Hallelujah, homie. Like, just for the people that are listening in as well, and to share with you guys, I love calling Donald homie, because I think when we first met, I asked you a question about whether there's a word like brother. What do you say in in amongst your own people? And you said, "Oh, we typically call each other homie." And so I love paying respect in terms of that word and your own connection with, with your peoples as well. But we're all brothers and sisters also.
Yeah,
So
most definitely.
yeah, so homie is a respectful word, but also I think it's a cool word to be able to say, because we see the word homie spoken on television and some of those cool movies. So yeah, it's good to have a homie. Donald, what about this point where you're speaking about the ability to be able to live in faith and be led? That's an amazing way
Yeah.
to be able to live life.
Well, there are some things in life that we can't control, and we just have to let go and be led. Um, there are things that I questioned in my life as I was growing up, and I used to ask God, why? Why do we have to go through this? Why us? Why me? But now I look back at it, I went through some of those things so that I would have the skills and the ability to help others usher through their issues of why. I had to go through the fire and the flames in order to get to the light, so that I can help others get through those challenges.
Mm.
And I'm grateful for every one of those situations in life, every one of those um, painful issues through death and experiences that I would not wish on my worst enemy. But it has equipped me to be able to do things and help others that I would normally have not been able to help. So it's all in the walk, and it's all in the ability to keep the faith and know that there is sunshine at the end of the tunnel. We just need to continue to walk. And for me, I continue to walk in faith. I
And so
continue to allow that to manifest.
that that's a beautiful sharing of faith. And how do you know when you're walking? How do you know when you're going through the fire? How do you know when you're being led through difficult situations? Or how do you know when you're leading others?
When
Whether it's just your own intellect that's making the right decisions.
when you wake up in the morning and you get another day at life, when you get another a chance at it. Not everyone wakes up. You know, I lost my dad and my brother, and I lost a son, you know, so not everyone gets that opportunity to make a difference in this life. So
Yes.
when we wake up in the morning and we have our health and strength, there's your opportunity. You got
Yes.
another day at it, you know, just keep pushing.
Yes. And also bringing that level of positivity forwards.
Yeah, I live by the saying that cleave to the positive and run away from the negative. As long as you are keep a positive outlook and mindset, that energy, that positive energy that you exude will attract positive energy. But if you have this negative mindset, this doubting mindset, this you know this defeatist mindset, what do you expect is going to happen to you? What type of energy do you invite into your spirit? Negative energy. But so for me, no matter if it's a financial issue or if it's just and I don't speak depression on my life. It's just one of those seasonal things that we go through. But if you invite and you speak that into your spirit, if you speak negativity into your soul, then you're only going to get negativity. But
Yes.
I affirm myself. I affirm my children. I affirm those around me, my staff, my beautiful, amazing staff at Kinaway. It's constant affirmation. It's constant encouragement. We can do anything. And try is out of our vocabulary. Kinaway, we don't use the word try. And in my assessment, try equals fail. You've already failed if you're only trying.
Last year, I was having a conversation with somebody after delivering our governance program, and they actually said that they give great respect to the word try.
Mm.
But what I was told is try has a place because if you genuinely gave it your best shot, but you didn't achieve, maybe there's an element of empathy towards truly giving it your best shot. But the problem with that word try is perhaps it gets misused because people use it as a way to excuse reaching for the stars.
Mhm.
Because to aim high for something and to not achieve it creates great vulnerability.
Mhm.
But maybe we should, as people, as Aboriginal business owners, as leaders, maybe we should be proud of truly trying, whether we achieve it or not.
Well, I don't know about that because if you try, you've tried and it's over. I
Yes,
I would much rather say if you try and you fail forward, get up. You still
yes,
have air in your lungs. If you wake up the next morning, get up and do it again.
yes,
Fail forward. Find
yes,
another way. Find another opportunity. If you're coming to a brick wall and you can't get over that wall, then you need to find a way to get around it. If you can't get around it, try to go under it. If you can't go under it, if you can't go over it, bust right through it, but get to the other side. As
yes.
long as you have strength in your body and in your bones, get to the other side. But if you try and you tried, you failed, do you give up?
That's a great point, and it reminds me of the story of Thomas Edison when he was creating the light bulb, when he was inventing the light bulb.
Mhm.
And after,
You know, he had a slave right with him, helping him do that.
see, that's interesting because maybe it was the slave that was the true creator of the light bulb, and Thomas Edison just chucking his name on top. What's let's trade some stories, right? And your story, I feel, may be more accurate. But what I feel on this is that there's a story that does sound very inspirational, and it is in line with the discussion of tribe. Because when Thomas Edison was creating a light bulb, the story goes he had hundreds of attempts, if not thousands. And after so many attempts that went wrong, that some people might call failures. He was asked by a newspaper, and he said, Thomas, how does it feel to be so focused on trying to invent something that you're not inventing? And he said, every single time I give it a go and it doesn't work, it brings me that one step closer.
Yeah.
But now that you've shone the light on the fact that he had a slave with him right at the time,
Well, I mean,
maybe
he was
it's really,
he wasn't a slave. His name was Lewis Howard Latimer,
yes,
and he was the son of a self-emancipated enslaved person. He was a self-taught draftsman, and he also contributed to the invention of the light bulb with Thomas Edison and
yeah,
the telephone. And some of his own inventions are that of the early air conditioning unit and the railroad car bathroom. So I think
and
when we were on this
so this
trip,
gentleman,
yeah,
what's his name again, so we can go and look him up?
Lewis Howard Latimer,
Lewis
Latime.
Howard Latimer.
Yes.
Yeah,
When we were on the trip on the delegation, we visited the World War I Museum and Memorial in Kansas City, Missouri. And one of my purposes for being there, and I asked our chair, Karen Millward, to really explain this to the guests, were that there were Aboriginal Torres Strait Islanders that fought in that first war that cemented the relationship between Australia and the United States. So when we talk about World War I, we also need to recognize those that have helped, win that war, those that were on the battleground, that fought alongside, and give credit to those as well. So, yes, the big generals, they got the big name and they got the accolades for, the success of the war. But we also have to recognize those that are rarely seen and rarely heard of when
yes,
making our accomplishments and making those big wins. So it's important to recognize the Latimers of the world
yes,
when we recognize the Thomas Edisons of the world.
absolutely. And I also feel like sometimes it's really important to know the truth, because
Yeah,
the story that I shared was heard by somebody who we actually remember hearing that story from Tony Robbins,
yeah,
who now at least is amongst the white elite of the United States. And so sometimes you can understand that the truth can sometimes fade away for the sake of trying to rewrite history. And that happens in so many different instances. And so you can imagine the interest that the white supremacists in the United States would have in being able to credit solely Thomas Edison.
Mm.
So I appreciate the wisdom
Thank you.
in what you've shared too, homie.
Thank you, brother.
The other thing that was interesting and would be great to get some perhaps cultural understanding on of your own culture and the devastation that took place in the United States with slavery. Because when you said that Mr. Latimer was a slave,
Well, an emancipated slave, a self-emancipated slave, but technically still seen as a slave. Back in that day, way back in the, what was it? Would have had to been the 1800s. The Emancipation Proclamation wasn't signed until 1870. I think it was 1876. Don't quote me on that.
yeah,
My professors would be on 1865. So Edison was
I
born.
think you're off by a month, homie.
Is that right? So
No.
Edison was born in 1847. So that would make Emancipation Proclamation 1865. Just because the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by President Lincoln doesn't mean slavery still didn't exist, because there were a lot of slaves on those plantations that, they didn't have television there. They didn't have widespread media to make the announcement that, hey, you're free. So they were still on those plantations slaving away. Just
Yeah.
because A bill is signed doesn't mean it goes into effect immediately. It
Yes.
takes time to get that legislation through. So his parents were self-emancipated. They self-proclaimed as free, and which made Latimer free, but he was still looked at or viewed as a slave back in that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And can you see a lot of similarities between and in the racism, the discrimination, the absolute denial of human rights, the lack of fair treatment, the lack of affording both African American people in the United States with fundamental rights as people that are deserved, and also the suffering that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders have enjoyed here in Australia?
Oh man, and I resonate so well with that, and that's why I resonate so well with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, because it reminds me of my own people back home. But what gives me that resolve and that hope is that for First Nations Australians, 65,000 years and still counting, you have survived some of the most atrocious things that and massacres, and you still have First Nations people punching. After 400 years of 300 plus years of slavery for the African American community, we're still fighting and punching and making things happen. You have young business leaders, doctors, lawyers, congressmen, and as of recent, the first African American president. There is that struggle, and that will always be. But there's sunshine, as any of us can see, that we will, if we continue to fight and continue to aim for the stars. Kansas has a motto, ad astra per aspera, to the stars through difficulties. Continue the good fight through the difficulties. I try not to think too much about what my ancestors had to go through. I think about what they went through, put me in a position so that it's my responsibility to make sure that what they went through is not in vain.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's up for the new generation. It's up for us to aim high and say, yes, those atrocities that have happened are still plaguing our communities. It's in our blood. It still plagues us day to day. That cultural load is real, but it's up to us to make sure that that true pain, that suffering that our ancestors went through is not in vain. And that's why I get up every day and I want to be that example. I want to break those generational curses so that we can create a new generation through my children and their children to do some significant things in the world, to show that we come from a great people, a mighty people, ones that have gone through suffering to be as greater now today than we were ever before. So I just take it as an honor, a badge of honor. Yeah, I'm a descendant of slaves.
Yes.
Uh, and those descendants of slaves have positioned me in a place where I can then proclaim that their pain is now, and those tears are now blessings. But I have to be that example. I have to make sure that they're not turning over in their graves, because I'm not doing all that I can to combat the racism and the atrocities of the past. Yes, there's racism. Yes, there's prejudice, and there will always be racism, and there will always be prejudice. But how do we handle that? How do we push through to that? And how do we find allies who are willing to break those curses?
Yes. And how do we shift from a place of wanting of people wanting to look good and saying different things
Mm.
behind closed doors? Because I think that even in the past 10, 20 years, there's been some public shift towards speaking more positively about equality, about understanding and appreciating First Nations peoples. If you go into the foyer of most corporations around town, you'll see some Aboriginal artwork in token of this kind of gesture that we're speaking of. And within those corporate entities, for sure, there's people who truly do appreciate and love First Nations peoples, true allies. There's also other people who pretend to embrace Aboriginal people, but behind closed doors say things totally different. And so I think that the public outcry has definitely shifted from what I've seen in the past 10, 20 years. But I really am excited and inspired to know there will be a day when we truly do have complete appreciation and conciliation. I don't think we've ever had conciliation before. So the word reconciliation is not something that I sit comfortable with, but a day of conciliation where people are loved as brothers and sisters. And as Martin Luther King says, when he talks about the day where he can see little black boys holding little white girls' hands, this place where we're loved and we're loving for each other as people, no matter the racial issues.
Yeah. And I think you know what, it just I often tell my kids, because they've had some negative experiences at their school. And I say, you know what? You be that example. You can't change some people, bad upbringing. Chalk it up to their bad upbringing. It's terrible. And they're going to have to face a day where they're going to have to reconcile with themselves.
Yes.
But as it relates to you, you continue to be that example that changes the mindsets of those types of people. And by your example, let's hope and pray that they change. Let's hope and pray that they come to realize that we are all human, we are all special, and we all are loved. And until that happens, continue to be that example. I mean, Matt, there are a lot of people that say a lot of bad things about me, but if I allow them to have that effect, I allow them to win.
Yes.
And they're not going to win.
And often when sorry,
yeah, no, I tell them, my mentality is say what you wish to say about me, but you're not going to stop me from getting up every morning and walking in faith. You're not going to stop me from doing the things that I have to do to contribute to this world and this one life I have. We will all go one day. Do you want your self-legacy to say you were a racist, that you did not contribute to the advancement of First Nations and the advancement of those that were disproportionately put to the side? Or are you going to say, I made a contribution to humanity? I made a contribution to make sure that everyone felt included and had the opportunities that they needed to build strong human generations of young people who will then do some great things for humanity, like our environment,
yes.
That I think we need to look at how we position our energy for good and not for hate. Why? I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand it. You use your one life to hate others. I feel sorry for them.
Yes.
But in this life, in this one life, in the life of my children, we're going to do good and we're going to love and we're going to do our best to be great examples. And I think it really just starts with us.
Yes, and I think that it also has to come down to empathy. Those people who may not be passionate about embracing First Nations peoples or African American peoples or migrant people, I think that if we can listen to their story with
Mhm,
an open mind and an open heart and understand that they, no matter where we come from, we are all people.
mhm,
And if we can then understand the injustices that have been imposed and caused. I mean, imagine you're living with your family, then all of a sudden you're pulled away without a choice of your own, and now you've lost all of your rights. They're there to serve in a completely foreign land where you're
mhm,
not connected. You're separated and disadvantaged and not treated as a human.
mhm,
And anybody with a heart of empathy can see that level of injustice. Or you're living on lands where people come uninvited, steal your children, inflict pain, create atrocious consequences that harm you, your family, your very being, your soul. If you look at those sort of situations with empathy, you need to know that doing the right thing, taking the right steps, and creating a pathway for connection and a better future for everyone has to
mhm.
be the right way forwards.
I
And I
agree.
think that you're doing such a great job in this work in having a man of your caliber at the helm and um, having Kinaway as an organization to be able to voice, represent, and work so tirelessly for First Nations businesses and First Nations peoples. It's really inspiring.
Thank you, Matt. I really, I do appreciate that. And I think that whole truth-telling element, I think we need to take others on the journey because, to be fair, there are some folks out there that they may want to do, but they don't know. They don't know how. They've never entered in this space. Yeah, I've met people that have never met an Indigenous person.
Yeah.
And there's no fault of their own. They live in their own little circles, but it's up to us to take them on that journey and say, "Hey, I'm here. Do you see me?
Yes.
Let's sit, let's talk, so that I can know and learn about you, and you learn and know about me." And I think it's just, there's that fear factor that we have to break and say, "We're open. Let's talk. Let's tell the truth."
Yes.
Let's express our how we feel about the way we were treated, and you tell me, why you feel the way you feel about me, and we need to be open with that and be accepting to say and dispel any of those rumors. Like, you know, in America, there are a lot of movies, and people say, "Oh, Menace to Society" and "Boys to the Hood" and "Boys in the Hood." All of those, are those real? There are some real elements and undertones, but because of those movies, there's this stigmatization of what Black people are.
Yes.
So we have this stereotype about us that we constantly have to dispel. So even at the helm at Kinaway, I have to do right. I have to work hard because if I get it wrong, one mistake, and I have the weight of my community on my shoulders. If this one African American at the helm of the CEO position gets it wrong or does something that disrupts this Aboriginal organization, that's a reflection on my people. So I carry a cultural load, and it's not easy. So, if we work together and we talk through things and we collaborate, we can do these things together. We can build a mighty chamber. We can build mighty businesses, but we have to be willing to be open to others' plights. Um, my staff are heavily loaded culturally, and I empathize with them. Like you say, that word empathy is important because everyone's expecting my Aboriginal staff to be here, be there, be everywhere, but it's a lot on them, So I say, no, you don't have to go. Don't worry about it. If it's stressing you out, chill out. You
Yeah.
know, invite them here. Let them come to you. And that's what we do more of that. So it's about understanding that load. It's about understanding culture and that my staff at 5 o'clock, they want to go home to their families.
Yeah.
They can't always go to your awards banquets and ceremonies and all of these other things. You know, they have a life.
Yes.
So, you know, understand that.
Yeah. And also, I think that it's fantastic when you can work in an environment where it's people first.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is one of the differences between an Aboriginal business and a non-Aboriginal business. I think that Aboriginal business is very much about community.
Mm-hmm.
It's about putting people first.
Yeah.
And there's hard work that comes from this. There's a lot of cultural understanding. There's a lot of sometimes the need to be at different places can't be fulfilled because of cultural commitments
Mm-hmm.
within an Aboriginal business leadership structure or team structure. But that level of understanding that you're speaking about, I think that it's a great way that this, like the saying goes, sometimes you can even in one way take a step out. So, for example, not be able to attend an event or a gala or something, to then be able to take 2 steps forward with that full heart, that desire to really want to make a difference for community. It
Yeah.
definitely shines through at Kinaway and also Aboriginal businesses as a whole. Donald, what about this whole situation we're seeing these days to do with black cladding? And we've launched the Battle Against Black Cladding Masterclass, BAM,
Yeah.
and we're hoping to create a level of awareness and, more importantly, change away from black cladding. But how have you seen black cladding, and how does it affect Aboriginal business in terms of what you've come across in your work at Kinaway?
One one thing that really, really bothers me and it really upsets me is that a mainstream business enters into a joint venture with an Aboriginal business and or business persons, or bringing these business people on their boards and utilizing them just for the sake of getting Kinaway certification or Supply Nation certification or winning a contract.
Yes.
Um, it's not right, because you are affecting the lives of individuals by throwing them on the board. They don't know much about director's duties. There's no proper governance behind bringing on an Aboriginal person onto your board. And if you're not educating them in terms of governance training and risk management, you're setting them up for failure. What happens if that business goes south and ends up owing the ATO $2 million? Who's
Yeah.
responsible for that?
Yeah.
Those Aboriginal business people will lose their homes, they'll lose their savings, they'll lose everything because some greedy person wanted to utilize the Aboriginality of one of a business member, someone from the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, to feather their own cap, but in the end, really cost the livelihood and the future of that Aboriginal business. That really irks me. So here at Kinaway, we really, in our board, I mean, they're really tough on black cladding. They scrutinize every member. A lot of folks that have applied for membership to Kinaway, there's a backlog. And there's a reason for that backlog, because our board takes their time to make sure, and they do their research to make sure that everyone that we certify, and sometimes people slip through the cracks, but as of late, we haven't had many slip through the cracks, because the minute we hear that a business is black cladded or black cladding, we call them into the office and they have a conversation with me.
Yes.
And if they don't satisfy me as a lawyer, as a corporate lawyer in this space, then we reject their membership and refund their application fee on the spot.
Yeah.
So it's about our organizations as well identifying if these things are happening. Kinaway wants to be the leader in making sure that when it's an Aboriginal business, it's an Aboriginal business. We're not looking at misleading and deceptive conduct over here. We've even discussed, Matt, about how we started looking at taking some of these businesses to the, and holding them accountable for misleading and deceptive conduct.
Yes.
That will really be, I think that'll really shake the game up.
Yeah.
But Kinaway is leading and moving to the 51% model. We are scrutinizing Aboriginal businesses that want to become members of Kinaway. We have a Wurundjeri woman leading our memberships. So she's very, very tough when looking at memberships. She doesn't play. She's Georgina Parisi. She's a young Wurundjeri Wurrung woman, and she doesn't cut corners. She's really tough when it comes to any instances of black cladding. Here, black cladding is divinely prohibited.
Yes. And so for those people that want to be going into a business structure with an Aboriginal person who may not be Aboriginal themselves, it really does call upon a level of integrity and a level of really wanting to be going about Aboriginal business the right way. And so it doesn't mean that a non-Aboriginal person can't actually become part of an Aboriginal business. In fact, there can be many cases where a Aboriginal person, non-Aboriginal person coming together can create amazing business outcomes.
Oh, most definitely.
But it's about having the right level of involvement, the right level of leadership, collaboration, structure, development, and also looking to engage First Nations employees and create positive outcomes through that business for First Nations people. That's really what an Aboriginal business is about, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, Aboriginal business is an Aboriginal business. You can get an Aboriginal business that hires all non-Aboriginal people.
Yes.
No, if it's an Aboriginal business, it's about business at the end of the day. But if you want to tap into those government incentives, if you want to tap into the IPP through those joint ventures, it has to be owned and controlled, majority owned and controlled by Aboriginal party. If you want to tap into some of the incentives that comes with being a majority owned and controlled Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander business. Now, if you don't tap into any of those resources and you're 100% Aboriginal owned, you're just like any other business. If you want to hire all African American people, I mean, that's your prerogative. But when it comes to you specifically trying to set up a joint venture or a business so that you can get an unfair advantage through government grants and government incentives, that's where we're running the risk of misleading and deceptive conduct and black cladding. And we don't want that. Absolutely do not want that. We don't want to see that.
Yes. In some ways, it's difficult for a chamber because you spoke about the very serious approach that Kinaway takes to black cladding. But one of the difficulties, I think, in enforcing the requirements is that a certificate or membership can be taken away without any real power, like a fine or getting back the money that was gained through government grants or large procurement tender opportunities
Yeah.
that were only gained because of the misleading and deceptive conduct. And so
Yeah.
something that I would love to see happen and change in the black cladding space is either chambers of commerce and places like Supply Nation were properly geared up to be able to take proper regulatory action in circumstances of black cladding, or places like the ACCC and ASIC sharpen their swords and do more about it.
Yeah, that would be, if we had again, Kinaway Chamber of Commerce is a not-for-profit. I mean, if we just speak truth, Kinaway Chamber of Commerce is a not-for-profit organization, and we're limited in our resources and our staff. But if we had the resources and the power to really monitor these businesses, like month to month, day to day monitoring, we would be happy to, have a section in our memberships to do that. But our memberships really consists of a couple of people. But we did roll out a new membership tier. It's a paid membership tier, and we review that every October. So membership intake month is October here at Kinaway. So next October, we'll be reviewing all of our members, making sure that what they say is truth and that there is no black cladding. But we also depend on our members to report any misleading or deceptive conduct in terms of that membership model. So we take the advice from our members, so we've had a couple of members call up and say, this is what's happening. You guys need to check into that. And we immediately check into that. And we have taken memberships away and refunded money because we're not going to tolerate that behavior. If you're found to be black cladding and we identify that, we will reject your membership.
Yeah, that's a good warning for anybody out there that wants to do the wrong thing. But for you brothers and sisters out there who want to be doing the right thing, who are an Aboriginal business owner, who are an Aboriginal business, it's good to know that there is the Chamber of Commerce, and there are great leaders within the Victorian Chamber of Commerce at Kinaway. And I just love to share, this is a positive note as well. One of the things that I love about being a member of Kinaway, and I've been able to be a member since Kinaway started, since the early days of Kinaway at least. But one of the great, beautiful pieces of it is the connections with brothers and sisters in business, where we can walk together, we can share together, we can learn and grow together in a supportive environment. And I think that Kinaway creates an amazing vessel for Aboriginal businesses to come together, and in knowing that we're not walking this walk alone, but in fact we've got each other to share and grow with. And I think that's one of the beautiful pieces about becoming a member at Kinaway. Yeah.
So don't just watch us grow, come and grow with us.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to become a member of Kinaway, is it just a matter of jumping on the website? They can get the form out through that way and
jump on the website and apply. And our new website will roll out where you can be able to make your fees. We won't accept from May, we won't accept fees up front. Once you get approved, then we'll ask you for your payment. We don't want to be in a position of constantly refunding members. So we want to do our, scrutinizing, making sure that you are who you say you are, and then we will approve your membership. And then that's when the payment will be, we'll ask for payment. But yeah, it's a new system in place, and it's a more accountable system. And we look forward to making sure that Kinaway not only remains accountable to its members, but holding our members accountable to the business sector.
That's beautiful. And we've covered so much in our yarn today, Donald. It's been amazing. We've covered from racism, from injustice, to creating amazing positive outcomes across borders, and putting together amazing entrepreneurial skills to create deep impacts as First Nations peoples. And we've also discussed every single thing in between. It's been a great yarn today, Donald.
Awesome. It's always good to speak to you, Matt. Thank you.
Some takeaways for people listening into this episode, being a part of this discussion, and to empower you and equip you in your own negotiations, drawing from the wisdom that Donald Betts had shared with us today, and to be able to give you guys 3 takeaway points to be able to use as vehicles within your own negotiations. It's these. Number 1, think big. Donald speaks about seeing opportunities. Donald speaks about stepping forwards in an overseas, international, First Nations-led trade mission. over there in Kansas in the United States of America. So seeing those opportunities, thinking big. If you can aim high, that can if you can aim high, that can definitely help you and empower you in your own negotiations. Number two, live in faith. Whether you call the spirit God, whether you call the spirit that you live and follow Bunjil, whether you call it the higher power, there can be some great advantages in your negotiations by being able to live spiritually in faith. Donald, you were speaking about how your own faith has helped you in terms of your own family structure, in terms of the relationship you hold with your wife, in terms of being able to become a loved participant and ally within the First Nations community. When you live in faith, great outcomes can be achieved that almost transcends negotiations.
Most definitely.
Number three, to stay positive.
Yes.
So you were speaking, homie, about staying positive to attract positive outcomes. And one way of doing this is in terms of being positive towards Aboriginal business. If we really value Aboriginal business and we can hold our head up high as Aboriginal business owners, amazing positive achievements can be gained. But also with that level of positivity, there's a reminder for brothers and sisters from mob out there, Aboriginal people wanting to go into business, to be positive, to know that you do have negotiating strength and you don't need to become part of or stay in a black-cladded business. But there are positive ways out there. There are positive ways to start up businesses. There are positive ways to navigate and negotiate through businesses into the structures that are true Aboriginal businesses. So staying positive to attract positive outcomes is another beautiful vehicle, a tool of negotiations that Donald has shared today. Donald, are there any final words you'd love to give us on this episode?
No, I just want to encourage all Aboriginal businesses and Torres Strait Islander businesses out there to, really, like you said, keep the faith. And if you need any assistance, I often say closed mouth doesn't get fed. So if you're a Kinaway member and you feel like we haven't done much to help you with your business, what we don't know, we don't know. So pick up the phone, reach out to us, give us a call and say, hey, can you help me with this, that, or the other? And I guarantee you, we have a team that's on the ready to assist you with any matter you may need, any introductions you may have, or you request. We are here to serve you, but we need to know. We can't read minds. So reach out to us. Come on by the office. We're at 163 Eastern Road in South Melbourne, 5th floor. Come on by and see us. Don't just watch us grow. Come and grow with us.
Well said. Come and go with us. Beautiful words and beautiful leadership. Thank you so much, Donald, for being part of Rolling Through Negotiations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.